next session is titled India's Political Future, Looking at 2024 and Beyond. I'd like to invite on stage Shri Ram Madhav, General Secretary, Bharatiya Janata Party. And to be in conversation with him, I'd like to welcome on stage Mr. Narayan Lakshman, Associate Editor, The Hindu. This session is brought to you by SSVM institutions. Over to you, Narayan.
Good afternoon and welcome to this post-lunch session on day 2 of the 4th edition of the Huddle, brought to you by The Hindu. My name is Narayan Lakshman. I'm an Associate Editor at The Hindu, and I'm honored to introduce my discussant for this session, Mr. Ram Madhav, the National General Secretary of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Welcome, sir. Prior to this important role in the ruling dispensation, Mr. Madhav was a member of the National Executive of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, the RSS, and he currently also serves as a member of the governing board of the India Foundation, a premier think tank in New Delhi. So without further ado, let's get right into the questions. So yesterday we had some interesting sessions which looked at major policy planks of this government, more Modi 2.0 than Modi 1.0. And we looked specifically at what we call the Kashmir Gambit. That is whether the action that was taken last year in August would pay off both from the perspective of domestic policy as well as the neighborhood or foreign policy concerns. In that regard, how do you address the question of, now the decision has been made, the consequences of it have to be dealt with. There are representatives of the people who are still not free to come out of their homes or wherever they are held and speak to the people. And at the same time, while services, telephone, internet, they have been coming back, there's been a long period of deprivation leading to an impact on the basic sort of standard of living of the people in the valley. How do you address that claim?
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Ram, for giving me this opportunity to interact with this group. And this is the, I think, most difficult session because it's the post-lunch session. In a way, it will be easy for me because some of you will be half asleep also. As far as Kashmir is concerned, it's not a gambit. It's a decision taken with full thinking. It's not something that we have done suddenly. We have maintained from the beginning. In fact, when somebody asked us that, you have not consulted anybody, we said we have been consulting for last 70 years. We have been saying that when we get the opportunity, we will do away with Article 370. But having said it, let me remind to most of you who knew the history of this whole Kashmir issue, that right from 1954 onwards, successive governments have continuously tried to dilute Article 370. A time came when Jawaharlal Nehru himself had said, when he was finally asked by some members, that why don't you now remove it? You are anywhere, removing it, you are peeling it off, in a peaceful manner, why don't you just do away with it? His reply was, it will erode and corrode by itself. There was general consensus on the issue that it should go. That's why it came into the constitution as a temporary and transient provision. It was never conceived to be a permanent arrangement. It was gradually made redundant in many parts. Finally, we thought the time has come for it to go. We took the decision on 5th of August. I can tell you, I can make a big claim here today, that when Article 370 was introduced into our constitution, it was introduced against the will of majority of the members of the Constituent Assembly. There was a resolution by the All India Congress Committee in 1949 opposing the introduction of Article 370. Yet, it was taken forward because there was that scenario where Nehru's word had to be honored. A bill, an act that was introduced into Constitution in a, if I may be permitted to use the word, in an unconstitutional manner, was removed in a most constitutional manner after 72 hours of discussion and debate in the parliament. We took this decision in a conscious manner, so it's not any gambit. Having said it, your important question, part of the question is, how do we manage the situation? I can tell you, in fact, I came back from Kashmir just yesterday. I was there day before yesterday and yesterday. Largely, the Kashmir situation is quite normal. What we want in Kashmir sooner than later is for the political process to restart. Political process is not happening. As a result, the genuine concerns of the ordinary people, for example, this winter, which is almost at the end of, we are at the end of winter in Kashmir. It was one of the difficult winters for Kashmir people. I'm saying it on record. I mean, when it is our administration, I should not be saying this. But I can tell you, there were difficulties, which could have been addressed had there been an active political establishment present at the grassroots. So I see urgent need for Kashmir to be kickstarting of political activity again. And take it from me, a couple of leaders in jail. There are hardly 6-7 leaders today in jail. Rest all are open, they are all free, former ministers are free, former MLAs are free. Several of them came and met me yesterday and day before yesterday. They all can actually start the political activity there. So that is the way to go forward in Kashmir.
Former chief ministers are not free. Yet.
Oh, yes. See, for a temporary period, basing on the security assessment, their detention period has been extended. But we all want them to, resume their political activity whenever the security assessment allows it to happen. But pending that, I'm saying, why should PDP party or NC party, Congress party, in fact, in Congress, nobody is in jail. They are all free. Why not they actually undertake the political activity normally? Why don't they take up issues normally? That is what is needed at this moment in Kashmir.
So if I may, to sort of answer that question that you just posed, I think in terms of the constitutionality as well as dealing with the situation on the ground, this came up yesterday as well. What troubles most people is the question of intent. So we looked at CAA also within this framework. So there may be actual constitutionality in terms of the letter of the law, but for example, in the way that it was done, the government, the legally elected government was dismissed. There was governor's rule, president's rule. There was then the governor was taken as the authority representing the will of the people, which is as per the constitution. But when you do all of that, and then there is a lockdown and you send in the armed forces, there is a very real question of intent. It is no longer a subjective matter of, who is speculating on intent. It is the very large parts of the country are asking that question.
No. I can't take a hypothetical question about intent. What is the intent? I know. I said we want political activity to resume. That is the intent. We want normal life to be peaceful. That is the intent. Last 8 months, Kashmir has been absolutely peaceful. Not a single death in any security-related incident. That is our intent. Normal life should go on. Normal political activity should resume in the state. We do not want to allow anti-national activity there. We do not want to allow terrorism to rise its head there. That is the intent. I have to tell you what is my intent. So that is my intent. But my larger point is, constitutionality or otherwise can be decided by only 2 forums. Not here. It is either in the parliament or in the Supreme Court. In the parliament, we have had enough discussion, we decided one way. Okay, you may say that you had the majority, you had it your way, but then your option to go before the apex court is open. These are the ways to prove the constitutionality of that decision. We are open for it. We are saying, yes, let the apex court decide if there is anything unconstitutional about it. Rest of it, what you are asking about managing the affairs there, I am telling you, our intent is for early restoration of political activity. Internet and other things will very soon come back. 2G is available. In fact, I would urge all of you, something which I do in on every platform. Now, your intent is clear, that Kashmir should be normal, happy and all that. Then your responsibility is that whenever you have the next vacation, that vacation should be spent in Jammu Kashmir. When you have to undertake a pilgrimage, please go to Vaishno Devi or Amarnath Yatra. If you want to have your honeymoon, go to Gulmarg. I was in Gulmarg not for my honeymoon, but something else, for some other event. So beautiful. So this is where the country has to come forward. This is what people of Kashmir want today. They want tourism to grow. They want people from the rest of the country to come. We are not doing, we are criticizing government sitting here. Sir, there are traffic jams in Srinagar today, traffic jams. Absolute normalcy in the state. But you are not believing me. You are saying, no, maybe there is normalcy, but I doubt your intent. How can anyone answer that?
So can I give you a reason why I mentioned that? So you said earlier that you had extensive consultations, and absolutely, I take your point. In fact, this came up yesterday too, that since 1953, when Syama Prasad Mukherjee spoke of it, and you had the Janasangh days, the abrogation of special status for J&K has been part of the plan. There's no doubt about that, I agree. When I said consultation, I meant more specifically now, why was there not more consultation with the elected representatives in the state? And further, it has been 6 months since this action was taken. Why are they still not out? Because in a sense, they are at the apex of that political system. So that is what I meant by it's pointing to a different intent. I agree with what you're saying about conditions on the ground.
then you start talking about it from 1947. Start talking about all the states then. In the whole country, this is the procedure followed. When central government takes decisions, the only forum it uses is the parliament. That is what the constitution mandates the government to do. Now, consulting with states, etc., whatever is the constitutional procedure that has been followed. That is why I'm saying, again, I'm repeatedly saying, go back to what has happened in last 70 years in the case of Kashmir. Every time, similar route was used by the earlier governments. That time it did not occur that, you have to consult people. Does it happen in the case of any other state, I'm saying? Does it happen if some decision is taken that affects the people of Karnataka? It's not that you go to individual voters in Karnataka to seek their opinion. There is a constitutional set procedure that is followed.
No, but sir, 356 is different from 370.
By the way, 356 was not invoked in Jammu and Kashmir. We withdrew our support. We were in power together with PDP. We decided to withdraw our support. Governor gave them more than 2 weeks' time. I exactly don't remember, 2 or 3 weeks' time for all, not just for the Mehbooba Mufti government, but everybody to stake the claim. They could not show the numbers. That is when the president's rule was imposed, not to dismiss any legitimate government there.
Okay, thank you. I mean, we can discuss that, come back to that. But in the meantime, I wanted to move on also to two other issues that came up yesterday. One is the CAA and the NRC, and we had a lot to say, and I'm sure you could also help us with that debate. And at the same time, another big development we saw recently was the Ram Janmabhoomi issue. I think one question that we all had was, how does that square with what the Constitution says in terms of secularism, what it implies in its spirit in terms of a sort of a more pluralistic ethos? Do these pander more to a majoritarian sentiment, or do you see no conflict with the Constitution specifically?
No, absolutely not. There is absolutely no conflict at all as far as Ayodhya decision is concerned. Number one, it is a decision delivered by the Supreme Court of India. And remember, this case was brought before the Supreme Court in 2010. In 2010, there was no Modi in Delhi. He was nowhere near Delhi, actually, in 2010. The talk began in 2012. So this case was brought before the Supreme Court. Supreme Court took its sweet time, took 9 years, and finally pronounced a judgment. And I don't know if we should question the constitutionality of Supreme Court's judgment on the principle of secularism, etc. Again, you are free to go back to Supreme Court challenging on the premise of secularism, etc. But there is nothing that violates any constitutional principle as far as Ram Janmabhoomi judgment is concerned. Let me remind to you, the Somnath restoration that happened in 1950, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the then President of India, was personally present there. Nobody said it is anti-secular or unsecular. These are all symbols of India's cultural identity. And I must tell you, this identity transcends the political boundaries of our country. Ram and Ramayana is an integral part of the cultural ethos of entire Southeast Asia, not just India. I was in Indonesia recently. The Parambaran temple, the ancient name was Parabrahma temple. The temple is being restored by the Indonesian government. They have installed, there are 3 temples, they have installed Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma in each of the temples. I hope we don't blame Indonesian government for becoming anti-secular. Some of them are symbols of our great civilizational and cultural heritage. I think we should take them in that spirit only, not in any other sense.
But I guess what troubles me is that the court itself, in its wisdom, did recognize that the destruction of the Babri Masjid was a criminal act. And in that sense, would it be more conciliatory of this government to find a more amicable solution going forward? I'm not even saying we should go back and challenge this decision, but the land has been apportioned now in a certain way based on the decision. So instead of, again, this goes back to questions of intent and, actual policies on the ground. Why would there not be a way to alleviate the insecurities of a certain minority community by doing it differently going forward?
Look, Lakshman ji, you go back to Hindu paper itself. You will find enough efforts in last 30, 40 years for an amicable settlement. Great efforts were made by people like Mr. Chandrasekhar as Prime Minister, Mr. Narasimha Rao as Prime Minister. It's not that no effort was made before for an amicable, conciliatory approach and all that. None of those things worked. You have written about it extensively. Others have written about it extensively. Finally, we all decided in all wisdom that, okay, nothing else is working. Let us now leave it on the Supreme Court of India. When court gives a judgment, now you say, no, why don't you go back to 1990 and start reconciliation again?
No, I'm not asking to go back.
No, the whole question of reconciliation. Secondly, whatever the court has said, Prime Minister himself has said, we accept it. We take it, their criticism of certain incidents. We take it in the spirit. And we want to move on. And court has asked the government of Uttar Pradesh to allocate 5 acres of land for a mosque to come up. That has been allocated. Let me tell you, the Babri Masjid Action Committee has no complaints. Maybe some sections within the committee have certain complaints, but as a body, they are not complaining. They are not going back to the court. Let us take it that concerned parties are happy with it. Let us move on. Let's not try to reinvent a problem there where it doesn't exist. As far as Ram Janmabhoomi is concerned, 1.3 billion Indians, I think, are broadly okay and they want to move on. Let us move on.
Okay, so again, in the interest of time, we can circle back to that maybe in Q&A. So the third issue that came up was the CAA. Again, you've spoken extensively, I've seen in public on that. Our question yesterday was, the CAA, by not mentioning a certain community, is in a sense going against the spirit of secularism again, which is a constitutional value. It was, of course, clarified that you are just fast-tracking the citizenship for certain other communities which have been mentioned. But at the same time, why not be more egalitarian in that regard? Why not also include certain sub-communities within that community which are discriminated against, say, the Ahmadiyas in Pakistan or the Rohingyas in Myanmar. So why not have a more inclusive vision? And again, sorry to reiterate, that goes back to questions of intent, inclusion, and secularism.
Probably here because the matter is before the court, Supreme Court, and it is sub judice. So I would probably give you more about the intent also. Let me tell you, first of all, lot of misconceptions about this CAA. Number one, it's not an act by itself. It is just an amendment to the existing Citizenship Act of 1955. Existing Act of 1955 does not discriminate. Period. This particular provision is only for fast tracking of the provisions for a particular group. Now, in that group, if we feel that so and so people are excluded, they are not excluded from the Act. Act still allows for citizenship to everybody. You know, I keep giving this example. Adnan Sami, for no reason of persecution, he was not persecuted. He wanted to stay back in India, spend more time probably in India, sought citizenship. He was a Pakistani citizen. He has completed the required, whatever formalities are required, and was granted citizenship by none other than Prime Minister Modi's government. I'm just giving you one example. So the Act per se does not discriminate. We have included an amendment by which we have added a provision to fast-track citizenship for certain categories of refugees. Now, there is a historical reason for it. I don't want to elaborate it because probably that was discussed yesterday extensively. But I can only tell you one interesting thing. You know, from Laos, one group of minorities were persecuted because they were seen as in collusion with the Western powers, namely USA. They had to run away from Laos and settle in Thailand. The US has picked them up and taken them to different, to America itself, but also to some other countries and settled them there. The last time that they were granted citizenship was 2004, explicitly naming that tribe. It is for them that the remaining 50,000 can claim US citizenship. Now, going by this argument, it should be extended to all Laotians. Now, there can be any other person claiming that he is also persecuted. Others will enjoy other rights. We have ourselves done it. The Sudanese, the Ugandans, when Idi Amin came to power, those who were holding the British passport were all expelled. Many Indians were holding British passport. Majority of them have gone to UK and they have become ministers also now. But some of them decided to come to India. Probably Madam Nirupama Rao must have been in the foreign service at that time, 1972. You were not there. By an executive order, Madam Indira Gandhi had allowed for citizenship to be extended to those who want to come back and claim Indian citizenship. No, the same logic to be extended should have been that why only those Indians? Why not all the Ugandans? There can be some other Ugandans who are persecuted by Idi Amin. No, all Ugandans also have the right to claim citizenship. This particular thing is only to fast track. I'm again saying it's not against Muslims or any community. It is because there were instances of historical religious persecution pushing large number of minorities into India. It happened in post-1950, it happened around the time of Bangladesh creation, it happened around the time of Babri demolition, it happened in 1998 when there were clashes between Chakmas and the local Muslims. There were 4 historical instances when large-scale migration had happened. They were all minorities. They are living in India. I deal with states where they live in hundreds. Even here in Karnataka, there is a Bengali colony somewhere in North Karnataka. They are all migrants from Bangladesh. no citizenship was given. There is no scope for them to go back. What we said was, normally you take citizenship in 12 years. In this case, you can take in 6 years. Only fast tracking, nothing else.
So, but the point is, isn't it in a sense like a religion test? Because you have had persecuted Islamic minorities from those countries come to India as well. Ahmadiyas are found here. They are found in different parts of the country. Similarly, Rohingyas, actually, this government has made a decision to deport many of them who are staying in a place in Delhi. And the attitude towards these subgroups seems different, which is why I'm asking you. I agree with fast tracking. It is wonderful. It should be done because these are people living subhuman lives, in a sense. But why not then have everyone included? It's about inclusion versus exclusion.
I think I have answered. I can take it further.
Yeah.
You see, if a Hindu is persecuted after 2014, he is also not going to be getting the benefit of this. For your information, you know that it has a cutoff year, 2014. Why we did that? We assume that governments in Pakistan and Bangladesh have now realized that, like India, they also have to take care of their minorities. We hope that situation in those countries will be conducive for coexistence of all communities happily. So it's not open-ended kind of legislation. Even a Hindu, if he claims that he is persecuted in 2015, he cannot claim the benefit of this act. Similarly, I tell you, Honorable former Prime Minister of Sri Lanka is here. We have close to more than 100,000 Sri Lankan Tamils living in Tamil Nadu. They cannot enjoy the benefit of this act. They have other provisions if they want citizenship. They are also persecuted. Majority of them are Hindus. Some of them are Christians. It is not based on religion, my friend. If it is based on religion, we should be extending it to all these groups also. That is what I am saying. We are not recognizing the fact that there were historical instances leading to certain large-scale migration into India. These historical migrations have been recorded. They are not something that we are inventing. In 1972, Indira Gandhi Mujib Accord, the premise was that there were 1.2 million minorities who had migrated into India because of the Bangladesh conflict. Indira Gandhi gave a commitment to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman that, okay, hereafter you take care of the minorities in your country, but those who have come into India will be taken care of by us. It was acknowledged fact, historically 1.2 million. Okay, some of them might have gone back, but there are large number of them living here. 50 years down the line, should they remain stateless? For them, we just have fast-track date. And this demand was made in 2003 by Pranab Mukherjee-led parliamentary committee. In 2005 by Dr. Manmohan Singh in the parliament. In 2010 by CPM. Everybody demanded it to happen. When we did it, we are being questioned about the intent of it. No, that is unfair.
Okay, I think intent has officially become the I word of this discussion, so I will try and avoid mentioning it.
By the way,
sir.
You are also victims of intent, I'm telling you, Hindu.
I'll leave it to other people to take that up. So to slightly move on to a different tenor, looking at the economy now a bit more, the BJP is in a sense like the Titanic, a massive ship with a variety of voices that shape its political vision. For example, there are those who advocate for Swadeshi. There are people you might consider, more economic liberals or libertarians, such as Arun Jaitley. You have people who embrace a more traditional sort of capitalist model, which could include some protections, like maybe S. Gurumurthy or others. And then there are those who would lobby explicitly for protections for industry or for the corporate sector. Now, how does the party reconcile these different voices which seek to influence the economic agenda? And what could we expect for between now and 2024 on how that agenda is going to be shaped?
Yeah, it's a very important and serious question, but let me start with this on a lighter note. Now you acknowledge that we are a very democratic people. That is on the lighter note. Okay, economy is a very serious subject. I don't want to see it from any partisan angle. We are the government. We are responsible for the upkeep of India's economy, period. If there is anything, we have to shoulder the responsibility. We have views. different groups within and also outside. You know, when we took that important decision of not joining the RCEP, people like me were not personally in favor of that. In fact, we have voiced our opposition to that decision of not joining RCEP. We said that leaders cannot be running away from important alliances. In fact, I said it on record that, you know, if you have 10 reasons not to be in RCEP, you have to find one reason to be in RCEP. We all have our views, but finally, government takes all the opinions and takes a final decision based on, obviously government has more information. Based on their information, they take decisions. Our government is committed to addressing the problems that we are encountering at this point in our economy. What happened was in the first 5 years, Modi won. We tried to set certain economic basics right. That India of this size cannot have a parallel economy running, cannot have large sections of its society excluded from formal economy, cannot have corruption, all over as a way of life. So we tried to address certain basics in the first 5 years. That's why there was Jan Dhan Yojana, there was Mudra Yojana, that's why there was demonetization, irrespective of different views about it. But Modi too is dedicated to growth. The whole effort for next 10 years will be towards registering better growth, greater growth. So efforts will be performance-centric. Even if you analyze the new budget presented by Madam Sitaraman, the emphasis has been that we are having number of projects, programs, which have been allocated hundreds of thousands of crores, but they are all linked to performance by different state governments. States, they perform, they get more funding. So we are putting emphasis on delivery, on performance. That is how we have to now take the economy forward and try to achieve better rates of growth. We are hopeful. We are facing difficulty, no doubt, but we are hopeful that with this new direction with focus on growth, we will be able to overcome the situation sooner than later.
So I think the concern here is that while you said, performance-centric approach, delegating to states, it's less about what is the priority that this government has in terms of its economic agenda and more about how it goes about implementing it. So for example, as you correctly said, there could be differing views on demonetization. Earlier it was said that most economists who were surveyed or who looked at the effects of it came to the conclusion that it was not in the best interest of the economy at that time, or it did fail to achieve its stated purposes. So is it that maybe the decisions are too centralized in the PMO, or there are too few people advising? This was my question earlier about voices. Which voices are influencing the final shape? I'm not doubting that the Prime Minister has the best economic interest of the country in mind. So could you clarify that, how the process works a bit more?
Oh, intent is not under question now.
I didn't use the word.
Okay, look, I know on issues like demonetization, there are different views. Again, with good intention, the step was taken, but Indians turned to be more intelligent than the government. So whatever has happened has happened. But again, the priority areas remain. Number one, as I said, we have to register better GDP growth in this country. For that, we have to invest heavily. Investment happens two ways. One is government invests. The other is we have to encourage private companies or foreigners to come and invest in our country. We will be pushing for both the investments in this country. If you see the budget this time, a number of projects have been freed for PPP model. Where earlier only governments used to spend money on those projects, today we said it can happen through PPP model. Even running railways, even running airports, even managing other infrastructure activities, it can be a private initiative. It can be a government thing, but it can be a joint thing. Our priority is clear. Number one is GDP growth rates have to be improved. For that, infrastructure spending has to happen. We are going to invest heavily on infrastructure. And if you see the budget again, there is a lot of emphasis on infrastructure development, from ports to railways to airports to many other things. We are not ignoring basic needs of the people. That's why we are also talking about building medical colleges in every district. That is about taking care of the people of the country, concern for the people. But the other priority areas remain infrastructure, which shall lead to number one, greater employment. Number two, greater GDP output. If we have more investment in infrastructure, there will be more incentive, more activity for industry, more production, more exports. We are really struggling with our exports, that, as you all know. The fall in GDP growth rate is majorly because our exports have fallen by not less than 3 percentage points. So encouraging exports is also a priority. We believe that, in India, MSMEs have great potential for exports and also job creation. In India, next to agriculture, major job creators are MSMEs. So if you see the budget, major incentives for MSMEs, they have to also create jobs in the country, but also they have to encourage our exports. So we have our priorities. Job creation is a priority, exports is a priority. For that, infrastructure needs to be encouraged. That also we are putting a lot of emphasis on that. So priorities are clear, I think.
Okay. So now looking at how the BJP is positioning itself for the next general election 2024, when you first came to power in 2014, it was only in 7 states that the BJP was in control. And riding on what is broadly acknowledged to be the Modi wave in a sense, the party went to rule in as many as 21 states by 2018, besides making fresh inroads into states like West Bengal, Assam, and J&K. However, since December 2018, the BJP has lost power in 5 states: Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra, and Jharkhand. And in some cases, it's quite significant because in Maharashtra, it is also a split in a sense with the RSS. It is, ideologically speaking,
Sure.
that is insignificant. And even in Karnataka, there is a certain weakness which maybe the party did not have earlier in terms of just the influence it has. So how do you reconcile this loss of power at the state level with the key agenda points at the national level, the ones we talked about earlier? Are they not resonating, or do local issues matter more?
No, that shows the agility and vibrancy of our democracy. In fact, I tell you, when magazines like Economist write that Indian democracy in danger, we don't know where to look for. We have won an election hands down with 303 seats in the parliament, ended up losing 3 states afterwards. Indian democracy is safe, secure, and vibrant.
But is that a message?
But having said it,
But is that a message from the
having
states?
said it, no, how the popular voting pattern is shaping up, let me tell you. Increasingly, it is performance-centric. The age of negative voting has gone. Emotions, negative issues may not fetch you dividends as the positive issues of performance or faith in the leadership that it can perform, it can do good to me. These are going to be the factors on which Indian electorate would vote in future, which is a very good sign for all of us. Now, I can mention Orissa. We have won 8 parliament seats in Orissa, but several of those parliament seats, even though the election was held on the same day, there were 2 ballot boxes, one for parliament, one for assembly. We have lost all the assembly seats in some parliament seats. We won the parliament seat, but lost all the assembly seats. Look at the wisdom of the voter. He's voting for Modi or BJP when it came to parliament election. He was voting for Naveen Patnaik or BJD when it came to state elections at the same moment. Probably he's using his two different fingers at the same time. That is going to be the challenge for parties, all of us, not just for BJP alone. You have to, number one, give confidence to the people through your performance. On that, I am confident. I am looking at 2029, not 2024. 2020. Don't take it otherwise. Because we are confident that on Prime Minister Modi, country has great faith. But you need to have similar leadership in different states, which can, again, get that kind of support from the people. That becomes the challenge. And they will select best out of the available people. You have to be the best out of them. That is why, for a party like Congress Party, it has to be, because they are a very small opposition today, they cannot show anything in terms of performance. Maybe Mr. Baghel could have shown something in the next 5 years. If he shows, he will be able to show, or some other chief ministers, they can show. But the leadership at the national level should be something that can, gain the confidence of the people. Today, that is going to be the real pressure on all of us, on our parties. So going further, we have elections to Bihar this year. We are aware of this. We have been in power for more than 10 years there. And Mr. Nitish Kumar has been the Chief Minister of Bihar for a very long time. So we have to, based on his performance and also the organization and other aspects. Similarly, we will face elections in early next year in states like Assam, Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and all these states. Everywhere, it is going to be, number one, faith in the leadership. Number two, a kind of vote for performance. Vote for performance. You have to win the faith of the leaders, a faith of the people, and people should feel that, okay, this man can perform.
So let me ask you, in Delhi, in the recent Delhi election, were you trying to project performance or negative propaganda?
No, Delhi is a mixture. Delhi, I have myself said, we have lost 3 elections. I have myself admitted, because probably on these 2 points, again, that's why I said Hindu also has that intent issues. you could have put it in a positive way. So probably between BJP and Aam Aadmi Party,
how can you put violence in a positive way?
I tell you, between BJP and Aam Aadmi Party, probably people have felt that Aam Aadmi Party could deliver better. Probably that was the reason. They voted for them.
Okay, so in the interest of
because
time...
Why I said it is because in Delhi elections, we secured close to 40% votes. See, I'm one leader who I'm ready to admit that elections should not be fought for percentage of votes. It has to be fought for winning elections. In Assam, we won the election with 29% vote, whereas Congress Party had 30% vote in Assam.
Yeah,
so
even nationally.
Percentage doesn't matter anything. You have to win the seats. That is how democracy works. But I said, people still thought that we are also a viable alternative. That's why they gave us 40% vote.
Yeah, even nationally you have 37%.
37, 38%, yes.
So.
But we have been alliance with other parties. Yeah.
So the last question before I try to give time for Q&A. While, in a sense, pushing hard, President Donald Trump is coming tomorrow, and while there's been a thrust to have good relations with the great powers, whether it's the US, Russia, or China, we are supposed to have in place a neighborhood-first policy as well. But in a sense, whether you're looking at the effect that CAA and others have, or the Kashmir policy, or in fact, even looking beyond those, have we ignored a country like Nepal? Have we not done them justice? How did we, did we fall asleep on what was going on in the Maldives and we got lucky there, the way things turned out? Are we ignoring things in Sri Lanka? Do we actually have a neighborhood policy first, or are we more keen to engage in the kind of hug diplomacy that the Prime Minister does to get close to Western powers?
By the way, by neighborhood diplomacy, if you meant interfering in the election affairs of each of our neighborhood countries.
I didn't mean that.
No, but that's what you are talking about.
No, for
what
example,
happened in
when
Maldives, scrape through. Maldives election was Maldivian people's internal affair.
How do you explain
You should
the
be happy
Nepal?
that there's a government that is keen on having good friendly relations with India. And for that matter, all the countries in our neighborhood have good relations with India. They continue to have good relations. At least their intent is very clear that they should have good relations with India. That will be our neighborhood policy. Neighborhood first. We also said something else you must remember. See, when Prime Minister talked about neighborhood first, he also talked about together we grow. What does it mean, together we grow? We recognize the principle of sovereign equality. Whether it is Sri Lanka, or it is Nepal, or it is Bhutan, they are our sovereign equals. If they grow, we grow. That means if those countries, for their growth, if they have some preferences about a particular given country, we are nobody to go and tell them that, no, you cannot have anything to do with them. We only tell them that we are a neighborhood. Our growth should be complementary. That is our policy, remember. So we are having good neighborhood relations in our neighborhood. As far as President Trump's visit is concerned, look, Prime Minister Modi has, at one level, foreign policy, of course, is a continuum. What previous government do, we take it forward. But each leader adds his own flavor to it, his own nuances to it. Prime Minister Modi's contribution is, one of the contributions, probably I would say, is that he has been able to strike good personal rapport with a number of leaders, world leaders. Now, President Trump is going to Ahmedabad, is going to receive a big reception from the people of Ahmedabad or Gujarat. But please recall, in 2014, President Xi Jinping came. He went first to Ahmedabad. He was received there by Prime Minister Modi, President Xi Jinping of China. So he was received there. There was a reception there. So in our policy, we add certain new agenda items. Please take it from me, that should not be read too much, like we are creating a new club. No, we are not creating any new club. But the relationship with America is definitely an important relationship. Vajpayee called it natural allies. That relationship, it has a very significant component of people. And among the people, the Gujarati people, who are in very large numbers in America. So people to people is an important component. That's the reason why there is a popular people's reception also for President Trump. Otherwise, day two, he's spending in Delhi having number of official meetings. It's like many other important visits that we have.
Okay, thank you. With that, we open to questions, starting with Mr. Ram.
On the CAA, it's not just the CAA, it's in nexus with the National Register of Citizens, and more important, more immediately, the National Population Register. So the point has been made that once you do it, and it'll be done soon, some states have said they won't do it. Several states have said that now, declared their intent. From there, the jump to the NRC is not very much. It provides the basis for this. So you have to deal not just with the CAA, but with the National Population Register and the scope for harassment and corruption that it offers. Secondly, it will work against the Assam Accord of 1985. 1.9 million people have been left out of the last NRC, of whom about 1.3 million are estimated to be Hindus. So under the CAA, they would be getting citizenship, but that will militate against the sentiments and the political mobilization of people in Assam. So would you like to comment on these two aspects?
Yes. Firstly, I think we have to be very clear that just as CAA, as I said, is non-discriminatory, it has no other intent except to fast track it for some sections of the people. NPR also is a routine exercise, and for the benefit of all of you, NPR decision was taken in June 2019 with the consent of all the states. Everybody had agreed to it. Now the opposition now is, I'm saying, the opposition now is partly politically motivated. But if they have, as Mr. Ram is saying, if they have objection to certain questions about, your parents, where are they from? If that one question is objectionable, they could always have talked to the government. But to say that NPR is discriminatory is again wrong. There is nothing that can be called discriminatory. It's an exercise that is very much needed more for the states, because all the majority of the projects that are implemented in the country are implemented through states. States should have relevant and up-to-date data. That's the only exercise that is being undertaken through National Population Register. There's nothing controversial about it. Now, it's a constitutional provision. Whether, like CAA, NPR is also a constitutional provision. No state government has constitutional right to say that I don't do it. They cannot say that. I am hopeful that wisdom will prevail and all of them will complete. If there are any certain questions they don't want to ask, probably there will be ways to discuss with Home Ministry. But to say that I won't implement NPR probably is going against our constitution. But on NRC, let me tell you, Prime Minister himself stated that no discussion on NRC has happened.
So the
There
Home
were
Minister...
a few statements here and there. भाई ऐसा है, मैं on a lighter vein कहता हूँ, शादी भी नहीं हुई है, बच्चे का नाम को लेकर झगड़ा कर रहे हैं. There was not even a marriage. You are already fighting over which name to give to your child. Marriage का discussion हुआ है, यार शादी करना है, discussion हुआ, इतना ही ना. Marriage नहीं हो गई ना. When it happens, every concern will be taken on board. Every person's view will be taken.
I think they're asking for divorce.
That will be, pardon me?
I think they're asking for divorce.
For divorce. Oh, this is even funnier. I mean, you did not have a marriage and you want to start talking about divorce. No, I'm saying on a serious note, NRC, number one, no discussion. Number two, assuming that in future, sometime if it happens also, I am sure government will take the views of all the stakeholders before framing final any such thing. It will be completely based on the feedback that we get from our stakeholders.
Okay, so, yeah,
Sir,
Assam question.
See, Assam's question is linked to NRC. When nationwide NRC, if any such decision is taken anytime in future, then what you are asking becomes relevant because we have undertaken an exercise there already. Again, Assam NRC was not done by us. That NRC was done because Supreme Court wanted it to be done, and it was initiated when Congress was in power, UPA was in power. Why did UPA do that then? If NRC is so bad, why did the UPA government initiate NRC in 2013? Because everybody felt that in Assam, it was an unfinished agenda. It was to be completed in 1951. We could not undertake that exercise. It was delayed by 7 decades or 6 decades. Finally, we undertook in 2013. When UPA was in power, it was initiated, we completed it. Under the watchful eye of the Supreme Court, if any future NRC happens for the whole country, what will happen to this NRC is the question that we have to address. Sir, we will cross it when we reach.
Okay, question, pink shirt, and then back there. And I'll take one from here as well. 3 questions, and then depending on time.
Good afternoon, sir. So you spoke of, getting the democratic process kick-started in Jammu and Kashmir. But by, rounding up leaders like Umar Abdullah, Mehbooba Mufti, who have a large political clout, by keeping them under PSA, how do you aim to kickstart political process when the main leaders of the state itself are kept into PSA and they are not being provided enough platform to get their own political will started?
No,
Okay, we'll just take 2 more questions.
Okay.
Yeah, back there.
It's very delighted to have a very sharp discussion with the BJP. Yep. Sir, performance was is your buzzword. And you also kindly mentioned about the more medical colleges. We welcome, because Indian healthcare is one of the... Would you like to improve the performance of private medical colleges, Mr. Madhav? I mean, some of the colleges, there are more doctors than patients. In paper, they got plenty of patients even to do MCH or super specialty degrees, because the image of the country. For example, if somebody from Ranil's country goes to England, they get registration, whereas
Okay.
Indian degrees
We've
look
got
down.
it.
got it.
Okay. And the last, third question here in the front.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to take you back to Kashmir just for a moment. You may have been able to make very convincing arguments at the political and constitutional level that Article 370 had to be, if not abrogated, at least put in cold storage or whatever the word you want to use. But I was wondering, why was it then necessary to change or downgrade the status of the state of Jammu and Kashmir to that of a union territory?
Yes. Firstly, as far as a few leaders in detention, how would it allow for the political activity to kickstart? I tell you, even the NC as a party has decided that pending the release of their two senior leaders, they should start district level and down the line lower level activity, political activity. I don't think this detention is going to be a permanent affair. As I said, very soon, once the security assessment is positive, all of them will get freedom to resume their political activity. But then pending that, for example, I mentioned Congress, none of them is in jail. We as BJP, we are running our political activity happily. Happily because nobody else is there also. But we want them also to come back. If they come, there will be some good fight and we can have good political activity. They have to think about it. Leaders, as I said, only 7-8 leaders are having restrictions on their political activity and movement. Rest all are free. They are very senior members there, very senior leaders there in those parties, PDP and NC. I'm sure very soon they will start the political activity. Just I will remind you, when emergency was imposed, before releasing the leaders, Madam Indira Gandhi had announced elections. This was the question uppermost in our minds. How can we fight this mighty force of the government when all our leaders are in jail? But then, parties, organizations took it upon themselves, came out, fought, defeated Indira Gandhi. So political activity can resume. I hope the state political activity will be resumed soon. As far as this question of status is concerned, as I understand from my discussions with our leaders, the status of Jammu and Kashmir as UT is a temporary measure because it was felt that because we are affecting a major constitutional change in the state, it is better that for some time, let the central government through the Lieutenant Governor run the affairs of that region, of that UT. My party, BJP, also wants that at an appropriate time, full statehood should be restored to Jammu and Kashmir. This is our demand also, and we hope that that will happen at an appropriate time. But Ladakh's case is a very old case. Right from 1950s onwards, the people of Ladakh have been demanding for separate UT status. There were strong demands before Pandit Nehru. Pandit Nehru had given them assurance that at an appropriate time you will get UT status, and at a later stage, pending UT status, they were given 2 autonomous hill councils. There are 2 autonomous hill councils in Ladakh today. One is for Leh, the other is for Kargil. Those councils function almost with UT powers. So there was a long-standing demand for creation of Ladakh as a union territory, which has been fulfilled at the time of this thing. But Jammu and Kashmir, to be restored its full statehood, is the demand of the BJP also.
Okay, thanks. Actually, we're time up, so we'll wrap up there. Thank you, sir. You've been very patient putting up with a lot of strong questions.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. May I please request Narayan Lakshman to please present a memento to Shri Ram Madhav.